Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties Radio, episode 30 for season 2018. I am Lee. I'm joined by Vikas, and this week
Hello.
we are talking about Chelsea Manning and her the potential denial of her visa, the sort of hold up on her visa, and we're going to talk about Dan Andrews.
Her visa was denied.
Oh, was it denied? Okay, I must have missed
Yeah,
it. Yeah, okay.
it was denied, and she ended up speaking from over Skype on the internet.
Right. Okay.
And Peter Grest interviewed her. Yep.
Okay. I didn't actually think to look at the the date on the. Okay, well there you go. It was
Latest
denied.
info.
This is the problem when you go to Facebook, is you don't. It's harder to keep up to date with the news. So Chelsea Manning's denial of visa, and Dan Andrews protecting the children by banning them from hanging out with people who they don't like, that the government doesn't like, because that's democracy for you. Let's start off with Chelsea Manning. So it been flagged a good 3-4 weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, that the government, they sent a notice to her, the organisers of her speaking to her, that they were thinking of refusing a visa on the basis of failing the character test. There was a bit of limbo for a while, and she did some appearances before she'd been formally denied, and now, as Vikas just said, she's been formally denied. This is all.
She never actually came to Australia.
Yeah, she never got here in the end. So Chelsea Manning, for someone who somehow missed, I don't know, the last 5 years or 8 years or something of national security news, Chelsea Manning was a soldier who leaked about 700,000 documents to Wikileaks, including some pretty infamous ones, like it was the collateral murder video, which showed U.S. Air Force, I guess, Army helicopter pilots killing civilians.
It was a helicopter, so it was the Army.
Yeah. Okay. And she was found guilty of espionage and sent to basically given, I think it was like a 35-year prison term, and then which was commuted by Obama.
You want me to take it?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
It was 20 charges. Yeah, it was 20 charges under the Espionage Act.
Yep.
Combined sentence of 35 years, which was commuted after 5 under Barack Obama.
Yep.
Now, look, a lot of people, I get pretty antsy about this because a lot of conservatives and a lot of left-wingers basically call her a traitor. And I have to point out the treason charge was one that was specifically dropped in a military court. So in a military court, keep in mind, the burden of proof is reversed. So if the government is saying that they can't make the case for treason, I think we should probably cut some slack there and not call her a traitor. But definitely broke the Espionage Act.
That would involve honesty in this debate, and when it comes to this sort of stuff, and not just Chelsea Manning, but you look at how the left has responded to Donald Trump saying, "Oh, he's a traitor because he met with President Putin," all this kind of stuff. So the term traitor is used an awful lot for situations where there's no.
But that's just like the word racist.
Yeah.
It's just like the word racist. Look, this is probably a side point, but it does need to be made. People need to understand words mean things. And if you dilute the meaning of that word, you dilute the effect of that word.
Yep.
Right? Like nowadays, nobody gives a shit if you call them a racist or a bigot, just because it's been used just as a point of disagreement. And that word would have carried some impact a mere 5 years ago. So, I mean, if you want your words to mean something, you have to adhere to definitions.
Yep.
And that's just a quick point I want to make.
Yep.
But on the issue of Chelsea Manning, so I want to take a sort of side road on this one too, because what I notice is libertarians seem to get caught in the same trap as the conservatives and the political left on this. I mean, the debate very much seems to be about effectively, if you're on the left, it's the ends justify the means, right? So she did uncover a whole bunch of illegal going-ons inside the military apparatus of the United States. And that was something that SCOTUS ruled, right? SCOTUS ruled some of the things that were going on from the leaks were in fact illegal according to US law, right? And it did result in some charges being laid. And that's why Obama wanted to commute her sentence. There is no denying the fact that she did steal a whole bunch of US government data and then published it to the world.
Well, no, she
There's
didn't
no
publish
getting
it.
around that.
She gave it to journalists who did publish it.
Yeah, sorry, yes, we have to be fair and specific. But yes, yeah, she gave it to journalists and to publish it. And this is something she's never contested,
Yep.
right? She did say she pled guilty to it during her court martial, and she pled guilty to it during the subsequent court case. So it's not something even she contends is something that she did, something she should be sort of just acquitted of. She admits that she did that crime, but she believes it served a greater purpose to do that. Now, I don't necessarily agree. The US does have a chain of command. It does have methods for protecting whistleblowers. Sorry, for allowing for whistleblowers to pass that information up the chain of command.
But
in her case,
certainly at the time where she was prosecuted, I mean, Obama set records for like the number of prosecutions under the Espionage Act, including going after journalists under the Espionage Act. So, it's hardly, and that some of these people also like demonstrated that like they tried to take this stuff up the food chain, and the food chain wasn't listening.
No, but hang on. Other people did, but Bradley Manning didn't. Chelsea Manning didn't. Right? That's the key difference here.
If everybody else who had previously been prosecuted for espionage tried to do it and then got prosecuted anyway, why would you? It's like Edward Snowden. Like, why would you bother trying to sort of work within the system when the system has no intention of being worked with? Like, it's not like the system
hang on.
is amenable to like whistleblowers.
There's two different situations here. So, and I always divide this because Edward Snowden, you can't make the same claim with Edward Snowden, right?
Sure.
With Edward Snowden, his only means was either publish it, right, or hope that he could find a sympathetic congressman.
Yep.
Those were his two options.
Sure.
Bradley Manning is inside the U.S. military system, and the U.S. military system has a protection system in place for whistleblowing activities, right? So you're talking about charges under the Espionage Act. That's absolutely true for civilians. Now the question is, inside the military, given the way the military responded to these leaks in the end and how the subsequent court cases, I don't think you can necessarily...
For the benefit, like I'm not as, unless you're really sort of studying this stuff, sometimes it's hard to get some of the specific details. So how did the military respond to this information after it was leaked?
So after it was leaked, there were a whole bunch of court cases that went on. Firstly related to Chelsea Manning's leak of it.
Yep.
But a whole bunch of people who were on those videos ended up getting court-martialed. That means reduced down to private rank and then subsequently dishonorably discharged from the military. There's a whole bunch of other private cases, classified cases that occurred. And Chelsea Manning has been open about that. That's just like, yes, the military did act upon that. But her position was just that it was going to be, if I recall correctly from the video, it was going to be too slow, and some of these people might be out of the military before the military actually did anything.
How is that not an unreasonable position to take then?
Oh no, I'm not saying it's unreasonable. I'm saying.
Oh,
sorry.
You just go and do that.
All right, we good to go again?
Yeah, keep going. Yep, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
so I was going to say, it's not a... Yeah, so we're just going to cut that part, right?
Maybe. We'll see. Keep going.
Sorry, what I was going to say is it's not an unreasonable position to make, but this is my point, right? It's about an ends justify the means sort of justification for it. And really, it's no different to a lot of other areas in the law when you get down to it, right? Like, for example, statute of limitations exists on a lot of crimes because we don't want someone to be constantly hounded for an accusation that may have occurred years and years ago, right?
Yep.
That obviously places an impetus on some people to go, oh, okay, I've got some information, right, that may end up perjuring a case, may end up, causing a mistrial or something, but they go because they want to do an ends justify the means thing. They want to slam this person in the public. So what I'm saying is, ends justify the means is a reason that you can say is reasonable, but I'm of the opinion that, look, libertarians should aspire to a better reason to arrive at their conclusions.
So
That makes
I
some sense.
don't know if it's ends justifies the means is strictly what's going on here. I mean, a system that only theoretically is accountable is not really accountable at all. So, like, I think from my perspective, if the the process by which Chelsea Manning would need to follow to sort of play by the rules didn't actually really result in any sort of justice, well then, from a libertarian perspective, I think it's fair to say that then, therefore, it is justified to break the rules to make that justice happen.
But would you agree that that should be? Would you agree that that same law or rule applies in, say, criminal justice?
So you mean like vigilantism?
Yeah, effectively.
Maybe. I mean, yeah.
See, I would
argue that. Well, I mean, in a sense, the entire state is completely illegitimate. So to an extent, if a cop tries to arrest you in the street, I feel you have the right. You have the natural right to stop them by any means necessary. Unless you have broken some actual kind of sense of natural law. So. Yeah, I would say that law, like,
okay, so
actions outside
that's
the legal system would be justified, provided it's actually something akin to justice. Like, it's not just, oh, there's a pedophile on a street, we're gonna kill the pedophile. Like, that's not justice. So, like, if the governmental system refused to do its job in acting justly, then you have a right to therefore seek justice in a just fashion outside of the formal legal process. Now, how that would actually work, I don't know. I mean, maybe you have some sort of trial amongst your peers in the community, and certainly, like, if you think like from what I understand of legal, we're getting a little bit sidetracked here, but like legal processes before
we're not getting sidetracked at all. This is actually fantastic.
Yeah. Villages would just settle their disputes amongst themselves. Like, so before the king essentially monopolized the legal system, it was essentially just all done at a local level between, in arbitration, that kind of stuff. So, like, historically, in the English system, there's not, like, no precedent for, like, that kind of resolution of disputes. It's just that we've lived in a monopoly for, 300 years or whatever, and where we are. So, just to bring it back to Chelsea Manning... Yeah, if the government's not going to do anything in a timely fashion, then yeah, she's totally right to leak this stuff. I mean, that's the point of having whistleblowers. I mean, that's that, and we.
Hang on.
Something like Daniel Ellsberg, which again, you're right in the sense that he's civilian, he's not military, but or the guy that I mentioned before, whose name just completely evades me,
Edward
Snowden, that guy. Like. People accuse them of being traitors, again, probably falsely, but, being, breaking the law because there probably was a process that could be followed, but it wasn't a very feasible process to get an actual just outcome.
So I'm going to be an asshole here and say it's probably fine to call Edward Snowden a traitor just because he's never been it's never been a charge that's been formally dropped in a court case. So
okay. Right. Well, if we're going to be like that, Vikas, okay. But he can't call him a traitor. He's only accused of being a traitor.
Fine, accused traitor. I will accept that.
So if you're going to do it like that, then that's what it's going to be.
Okay, sure. But I actually find that entire topic, that sort of tangent, quite interesting because it comes into the question of the theory of justice, right?
Yep.
And I think let's pretend we're in Ancapistan for a second.
Yep.
So you've got private police forces, private security forces, and you've got private courts. Yep. Effectively, you would have to agree to some form of arbitration in order to get your justice, right?
Yep.
So which actually doesn't and when you go down that road, it doesn't look any different from it won't look very different from how the current criminal justice system is approached, because you're there presenting a case, right?
Sure.
The defendant is presenting a case, and you're both agreeing to what the judge rules.
Yep.
You're both agreeing not to go to vigilante and mob justice, right? To take it to this court.
Just a resort to violence, sure.
Yeah. So I don't think you will ever arrive at a situation. I don't think in a civil society, even in Ancapistan, you will arrive at a situation where you've got to go extrajudicial and make those determinations by yourself.
Well, in some ways,
I think you can't. I don't think you can. I don't think you can do it without breaking that.
So in some ways, there's already that dynamic at play at the moment with something like vehicle, like insurance claims. So right now, if you crash into somebody's car,
like knock-for-knock arrangements.
Like so if you crash into somebody's car, your insurance company gets in touch with their insurance company, and you have if there's some sort of dispute about the facts, they'll have an arbitration, because the alternative is to go to a court and arbitrate in a court, which is much more expensive. And really, that's the same dynamic that's kind of at play with any kind of totally private system, which is, I am accused, by you of stealing your goat, and I dispute that I stole your goat. I said I paid you for it. Our fellow villagers in, early Middle Ages England get together and support our sides and say, okay, well, let's pick somebody who can resolve this dispute. And the alternative is I get my mates together, or you get your mates together to try and take back the goat by force from me. And that's really expensive, so it's cheaper to arbitrate as opposed to just, let's get our bros on and let's get at it. So similar sort of dynamic that we see even in the legal system we have. Now, just to get back to Chelsea Manning, while we were talking about this first place, would you agree though? So leaving aside the details of her case, because I think for me, you can say, okay, Chelsea Manning's a bad person for what she did. Is she though? Should she be refused a visa anyway? Because that's kind of at the heart.
Well, she was already refused a visa.
Yeah, sure, but you
mean
does she should she fail the character test? Because there's no sense in which she's any threat to any Australian. Like she wasn't accused of killing anybody. She's not plotting a coup, as far as I'm aware. Like, it's just a public speaking tour talking about relevant issues for public debate. I mean, it just seems to me that, like, even if you don't like her, and even if you don't agree with her actions, like, she should be allowed to come here and speak. Like, it's actually, it's whether the law says that she can be denied is irrelevant to the fact that she shouldn't be denied. She should be allowed to come here.
So I err on the side of allowing people like Chelsea Manning anyway, just because it creates a massive Streisand effect.
Yeah.
The reality is Chelsea Manning is basically a maypole for this entire national security sort of thing. If you take a look at her from the context of actual national security, she's too public to do anything in the area anymore.
Yeah.
She's radioactive, so that they're never going to give her a clearance or anything. She's never going to be able to work in security, right? No one who works with the government is going to trust her enough to vouch for her to give her a job, right? Yeah. So she's pretty much thrown any company associated with the U.S. government as a potential employer.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why she's making a bid to actually get into politics.
Sure. And it should be pointed out that commuted is not the same as pardoned. So her sentence was commuted, but she's still found guilty of all the charges that she was found guilty of.
Even if she was pardoned, she was found guilty of all the things that she was found guilty of.
If she's pardoned, I would have thought her criminal record would have been
No, it's not expunged. Pardon just literally means, like, you did something wrong, right? We're just going to forgive you for it.
Okay. This is what we need to see. I think there's a difference. But anyway, it doesn't matter because she wasn't pardoned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
she wasn't pardoned. She just had her sentence commuted.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I don't think, speaking as someone who does work with the government, I don't think anyone who is ever charged of that type of crime will ever have their sentence pardoned. Because so what the government does when it gives people clearances and things like this is it creates a position of trust, right? You're given a position of trust in relation to the information that you deal with, right? So the expectation, and if you can read the Crimes Act and you will see, like it says it's very serious if you breach this law. So I mean, from the perspective of a taxpayer, I would like it if our public servants don't result in data spills. However, also as a taxpayer, I would like it if the government didn't keep secrets from me.
Yes.
So from my perspective, it's a situation of we need to have processes in place to identify the illegal shit that goes on in the government, and we need to really protect these whistleblowers, and we really need to protect the processes for these whistleblowers. But at the same time, we should be very stringent about the control on the data that we have, that the government has.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is the frustrating thing for me, particularly when dealing with the right on this issue, is it's like, okay, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, they're traitors, even though they're not. But they still, they still pretend like they want to have this discussion about, well, what's the appropriate level of, security? And it's like, well, by excluding these people, by saying you can't even have these people around, or you can't even let them into the country, or they should go to prison forever and never be seen again. It's like, well, how can we really take it seriously? Yeah, well,
more people know about it.
That's the consequence. But, I think just from, kind of a sense of kind of political, I don't know, an attitude towards an issue. I just find people who are like that, I just can't take them seriously. It's like, well, okay, so you think there's issues with this topic, but yet you want to criminalize every single person who wants to talk about, who wants to give information to the US taxpayer. I mean, that's ultimately who was the target, who was the recipient of this information. It wasn't like Chelsea Manning was bundling these documents and smuggling them to China, or, Edward Snowden was handing them off for pay. They basically dumped these documents to journalism agencies, and then Chelsea Manning went to prison, and then Edward Snowden went into exile, and that was it. All this stuff was the design was to get it out to the consumer. It's not
to the public. But
the public, yeah.
So one of the major problems was when Osama bin Laden was killed, he was found with WikiLeaks documentation, from some of the leaks that had occurred under Snowden, and from some of the leaks that had occurred under Manning. Now, look, despite people making the claims several times that Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden led to the deaths of operatives, that's never been a case that the U.S. government has ever presented in any court.
Yep.
And they've been given plenty of opportunity to. I mean, Chelsea Manning's case was a military court. They could have produced classified charges.
Yep.
Which Chelsea Manning and her lawyers would be able to see.
Yep.
And the government would be able to make, and the judge would be able to rule on, but we wouldn't see for 75 years. They could have done that.
Yep.
But they didn't. Mm. So one of the things we need to kind of, again, coming in with you have to be fair about what you accuse Manning of. The government had its chance to present that case and didn't.
Yep.
So that leads me to believe that it's probably not true.
Yep.
I don't know what the case is with Snowden, because he hasn't been charged yet.
Well, and also Snowden wasn't really so Manning, from the best I understand of the information she shared, was there's a lot of operational stuff to do with the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, where Snowden really gave information about the NSA, it was sort of
prison.
Yeah, information of their programs. Maybe there was some stuff, and I definitely. So the difference between WikiLeaks and, say, The Intercept and The Guardian is that the WikiLeaks are just here, have everything, we're not redacting anything. Where I know in the case, after that, when, having read interviews with, what's his name from The Intercept?
Greg Greenwald.
Yeah, Glenn Greenwald, and others, they were more keen to sort of redact that kind of information. So they actually did edit the documents to keep out details that might have sort of compromised the identities of people, but still would give information about the nature of the program. So, I think in the case of Snowden, it's even harder to make the case, from my understanding, simply because the information that was shared about what he gave away was more about internal domestic programs or international sort of spying programs, rather than this informant went with this person in Afghanistan, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I don't want to speculate on it, but look, my point is, if the government was going to charge them with that, they could, and they could have finished. They could have inadvertently, so Chelsea Manning's case, and they didn't.
Yep.
So either they couldn't make the case, or the case just doesn't exist, or it's so freaking secret that nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Which,
And
to be perfectly honest, if somebody wants to make that case, I'd say that it's not a real... Like, I think anything which is, this is so secret we can never tell you, then as Chris Hitchens said...
then it leads me to believe...
an argument made with no evidence can be dismissed with no evidence. So, like, just say, oh, it's so secret we can't tell you the case. Well, then it doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's... Yeah.
Actually, I was going to go in the other direction. If someone's making that case, it's so illegal that we can't tell you, I'd have to sit there and go, so it's probably illegal then.
Right? As in the thing they're trying to... What do you mean?
The thing that's so secret is probably illegal.
Oh, sure. Which is even more reason to dismiss it. as evidence as, that Chelsea Manning's a secret traitor, even though she wasn't charged with treason. Let's move on. We've got a few minutes left. Let's talk about Daniel Andrews, speaking of the heavy hand of the security state. The anti-association laws have just passed the lower house in the last couple of days in Victoria. We've seen these sorts of laws, most notably the VLAD, the anti-bikie laws in Queensland. Essentially, it's a scheme.
Yeah, but this isn't... Yeah, it's not exactly the same.
It's not the same, but it's similar sorts of things where you can apply for orders to stop people from associating.
Yeah, of course. And this is about, from what I understand, kids.
Yes. Children as young as 14 can be prohibited from associating with people.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to target here. It seems to be backed on... it seems to come out of nowhere. And I have a suspicion that this is their way of trying to tackle the gang violence that doesn't exist in Melbourne. The non-existent Sudanese gangs.
Yep.
It seems like that's what they're trying to target. But it's all about child safety. And I wish they'd just come out and say there are some gangs. They belong in certain areas, and certain areas of Melbourne are having crime increasing.
Yep.
So I kind of sit there and look at this and go, it's pretty clear that they're trying to target teenage gangs, even though they're not calling it that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think these laws... Well, I guess this has been an issue for a while, so... I mean, I think the laws have sort of been coming down the track for a while.
Yeah, and by the way, the Liberals will not do a lick to stop this.
No.
In fact,
Well, that's because they love freedom.
Absolutely
because
nothing.
Don't you understand that they're the biggest defenders of freedom and the Western the history of Western civilization, which of course, banning people from associating freely and talking to each other is totally a part of that Western history of Western civilization. So
you joke, except it really was.
I know.
I'm not even kidding.
Joking. I'm joking to say that Liberals are all authoritarians, but also that Western civilization as a subject is pretty much a joke because it was that.
No, but I mean, Western civilization was pretty damn authoritarian.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Even the U.S. in 1796 passed sedition laws.
Yeah.
So I mean,
one of the first things passed by the Congress after the passing of the Bill of Rights, I think.
Yeah. No. The Bill of Rights came much later.
Did it?
Sedition laws came before the bill. Yeah. It was,
okay. Well, certainly after the...
I was pretty sure...
Anyway. I think it was 1790 was the Bill of Rights.
Oh, yeah, you're right. 1789. Yeah.
Because that's the great irony. It's like all this stuff about no regulating free speech and free association, and then Alien Sedition Act here.
So sedition. Yeah, the Aliens and Sedition Act was in 1798. Yep. Yeah.
Good job, founding fathers. Not just about that slavery.
To be fair, it's really a shot against John Adams.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I often consider John Adams the real first president of the United States because George Washington they kind of just gave it to him, right? Just because he was the badass general that won them the war. But John Adams was technically the first to really campaign for the position. Just saying.
Yeah, that can be fair. I mean, Anyway, I just whenever I think of George Washington, I think of Sheldon Richman has done a pretty good takedown of George Washington and how he actually was this massive crony and started war to make money and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, that's a separate issue. Let's get back to Commissar Andrews.
We do need to have
with the thought policing. I mean,
there's nothing more to say other than it's so stupid and it like. All it's going to do is end up with a bunch of kids.
Like Australia has some sort of like like we have some kind of freedom that can be defended by the institution itself. Like, I mean, to the best of my understanding, the Vlad laws were all found to be constitutional. No doubt that this will be found to be constitutional as well. I mean, if they can basically tell you who you can and can't hang out with, and essentially cut you off from people in your life, like entirely, because that's just what they want to do. I mean, what real claim to freedom can we really say that we have?
It's depressing, but yeah. I mean, I think that this is one of those laws when eventually the sub stories of 14-year-olds ending up in jail or ending up in front of the courts gets a little bit too much. Yeah. Eventually, you're going to start seeing people go, "Oh, this is really, really unfair," because it targets. Like, kids as young as 14 can be hit by this law.
Kids as young as 14 have never committed a crime as well. So.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. So what you're going to start... So as soon as you start seeing... And the first minority kid, I'm literally not even kidding you, because this is Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
The first, African kid that ends up in front of a court. And I swear to God, most of Melbourne is going to be crying out, racism! Which is going to be great, because it's going to be... which is going to be great if Dan Andrews wins another term in government, because it's going to be him having to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is like when you think about sort of public choice. I mean, this is the kind of thing. Because there's an election in 2 months, November.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Matthew Guy has been Melbourne, like the state of Victoria, crime is going down. Absolutely, can't deny that. However, there are hot spots in Melbourne. Dandenong is one of them.
Yep.
Right. And the more the Dan Andrews government keeps denying that there are hotspots of crime appearing up in Melbourne, the more the law and order agenda of Matthew Guy has been going up. So this is just his sort of half-hearted attempt at going, hey, you wanted law and order? We're taking these gangs down that don't exist. Because they're non-existent gangs. They don't exist. There is no gang problem.
Yeah, well, except in the minds of Andrew Bolton, who have all the other sort of Victorian-based conservative commentators who get on their soapbox. Probably, what's his name? I know he's from New South Wales. The other guy in Sky News, Paul Murray.
Yes, well, policing for gang activity is a lot like quantum physics. If you think you're doing it right, you don't understand it.
Yeah. Well.
So
the joys of having no real sense of political principle. The things that you can get away with.
Well, we don't. I mean, I don't have to deal with gang violence.
Yeah, no,
I don't have to deal with gang violence.
For you, it is a problem
right?
because we recognise that the truth is that those gangs aren't existent. But not most people don't think like us.
Did you say that gangs don't exist?
Well, sorry, that this widespread gang violence doesn't exist.
No, it's not.
There's an epidemic of this surge. They're being overrun with young people doing horrible things, that kind of stuff.
No, it's in hot pockets, right? And you can see the data that says it's right here, it's right here, it's right here. It is not hard to make that. It is not hard to look at data sets and go, oh, look, there appear to be a lot of robberies going on here.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, the people are reporting that it is a young person. Yeah. That tells me that there is a young person crime problem in this area.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? And surprisingly, the thing that tends to work is police presence.
Yeah. And,
right.
Undoubtedly it's caused by a specific thing, which may not be fixable, but it's certainly not an unending tide of young bodies crawling over the dead old people trying to buy meth or whatever reasoning they come up with otherwise.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. I think that's it for this week. We're at 35 minutes. Any final thoughts?
Look, I realize this goes against every piece of public choice theory, but I think libertarians in Australia need to start doing the unsexy thing and start actually making submissions based on data.
As opposed to the sexy things we normally do?
the sexy things we do, like troll on the internet. Yeah, look,
Okay.
We have a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
But I think we suck at communication.
Okay.
We really do.
I mean, maybe that's something we can put on for the agenda for next week. Because I mean, submissions to inquiries is. I actually agree with you, but I think it'd be good to talk about the issues around that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, there we go.
Do
Dear listener, dear viewer, you already have an insight into what we're going to talk about next week. So, if you want to make a submission, you can get a hold of us on Facebook, Taking Liberties Radio, and we're on YouTube and iTunes. And if you have any other,
we have a website.
We have a website, takinglibertiesradio.com.
Libertiesradio.com. Yeah.
Which you can get.
So like, comment, and subscribe.
Yep. Thanks for
ring that bell.
All right. See you, everyone.